I used to work nights at a small-town cemetery just outside of Burlington, Vermont. Not glamorous, I know. I was 27, broke, and trying to stay sober after some bad years. The job came with a trailer on the edge of the property, and the hours. Suited me, nobody around, no expectations, just me, the grounds, and the quiet. My main duties were pretty simple. Lock the front gates at sunset. Walk the perimeter with a flashlight, check for vandals or animals, then log everything in the dusty office next to the crematorium. I'd stay overnight, do another sweep at dawn, then unlock the gates before leaving. Most nights were dead quiet. But not that one, Thursday in October. It was colder than usual. The leaves were mostly gone, the trees stripped bare like bones. I just locked the front gates when I noticed a car, an old green Saturn, parked just down the road. Its lights were off, but I could see the silhouette of someone sitting in the driver's seat. I waved my flashlight at it. No movement. It was weird, but people sometimes parked out there to smoke or drink without getting caught. So I didn't think much of it. I started my usual walk, flashlight in one hand, thermos in the other. I passed rows of crooked stones, names half-erased by time. You get used to the quiet in a place like that. It becomes a kind of background hum. But that night, something was ... off. The silence felt too thick, like it was pressing in on me about. Halfway through the perimeter, I saw something near the back fence. A pile of dark fabric, maybe? I stepped closer and realized it was a backpack newer, black with blue zippers, sitting upright in the grass. I looked around thinking maybe some kid had snuck in and left it. I opened it. Inside were a half-eaten sandwich, a phone charger, and a spiral notebook with no name. No wallet, no ID. I felt uneasy, like I was being watched. My flashlight skimmed over the gravestones, the empty path, the bare trees. Nothing. I zipped the backpack up and carried it to the office. I figured I'd call the sheriff in the morning if no one came back for it. Around 2 a.m., I was in the trailer, trying to nap, when I heard gravel crunching outside. I sat up, heart thudding. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming toward the trailer. I turned off the light and peeked through the window. No one there. I opened the door quietly and stepped out with the flashlight. The air smelled like cold dirt. I scanned the yard. Nothing. I walked to the office, just to be safe. The backpack was gone. I froze. There were no footprints in the frost outside the door. The grass hadn't even been bent. But the bag was gone, as if it had never been there. I stood in that office for a long time, trying to rationalize it. Maybe I'd imagined bringing it in. Maybe someone had taken it when I wasn't looking. But I knew I'd zipped it up and set it on the desk. I went back to the trailer and locked the door. Around 4:15 a.m. Just before dawn, I heard knocking, not on the door. On the back window, 3 slow knocks. Then silence. I didn't move. My phone was dead. I just sat there in the dark, holding my breath, waiting. Then the knock came again, closer this time, like they were circling the trailer. Knock, knock, knock. When the sun came up, I finally stepped outside. No one was there. But the gravel path behind the trailer had fresh footprints, bare feet, small, like a child's, leading away into the cemetery. Then they just stopped, right in front of a gravestone. A small one, with no name, just the word daughter carved into the weathered granite. I quit that same day. Didn't even ask for my last paycheck. Packed a duffel bag and caught a bus out of town. I haven't been back since. I still don't know who or what was out there that night, but sometimes when I wake up in the dark, I swear I hear those same 3 knocks. My name's Daniel, and this happened 3 years ago when I was driving from Ohio to Florida for my cousin's wedding. I was supposed to make it in 2 days, but somewhere in Georgia, just past midnight, I got too tired to keep going. My eyes were burning, and I was swerving slightly, so I pulled off at the next exit and found this cheap-looking roadside motel called the Green Pines Inn. It had the kind of faded neon sign that buzzed, and the parking lot had only 2 cars. Both dusty. The man at the front desk was in his 60s, wearing a stained white polo, and he barely looked up when I walked in. He just slid me a key and said, "Room 209, up the stairs, end of the hall." The motel had that stale, chemical smell like it had been scrubbed with cheap cleaning products to cover something worse. I carried my bag up the creaky wooden steps and walked down a dim hallway lit by flickering yellow bulbs. When I opened the door to 209, the first thing that hit me was how cold it was. The AC was off, but the room felt like a refrigerator. I checked the thermostat. I figured I'd just pull the blanket tight and get through the night. The room had 2 beds, a scratched-up TV, and a small table with a Bible on it. Fancy, but I was exhausted. I locked the door, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed on the bed closest to the door. I must have dozed off because I woke up around 3:12 a.m., according to the red digital clock, and I heard something. A slow, dragging sound. At first, I thought it was the wind or maybe the ice machine down the hall, but then I realized it was. Coming from the other bed, the one right next to mine. I didn't move. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was dreaming. But then I heard it again. Fabric shifting, like someone turning under the covers. My heart started pounding. The room was pitch black, except for the red glow of the clock. I slowly reached over and turned on the lamp. The other bed was empty, still made. But the top blanket was pulled back slightly, like someone had just gotten out. I sat up, trying to calm myself down, thinking maybe I'd kicked the bed in my sleep or something. I got up, checked the door, it was still locked, chain on. I even looked under the bed, both beds, nothing. I told myself I was overtired and jumped at shadows. I turned the light back off and laid down again. That's when I heard a breath, not mine, slow, shaky, coming from the corner of the room. Near the TV, I froze. I didn't dare look. I just stayed still, eyes wide in the dark, ears straining. Then something even worse, laughter. Soft, raspy, like someone trying not to be heard. I jumped out of bed and flipped on every light. The room was empty. No one behind the curtains, no one in the closet. I was sweating, but it still felt cold. I was about to grab my bag and leave when I noticed something I hadn't before on the inside of the bathroom door. Written very faintly in pencil were the words, "Don't sleep in this room." I felt sick. My gut told me to run, but I didn't want to be dramatic over a few noises and some scribbled warning. I convinced myself it was a joke or some leftover thing from a previous guest. I kept the lights on and sat in the corner until sunrise, eyes wide open, too scared to even blink. As soon as the sun came up, I packed my stuff and went to the front desk to check out. The old man was gone. The younger guy was there instead. Looked like he'd just started his shift. I handed him the key and mentioned that I'd had a weird night. Asked if anything strange ever happened in room 209. He frowned and said, "Room 209? That room's not in use. We haven't rented that out since last year." I stared at him, told him I'd been given the key last night by the other guy at the desk. His expression changed completely. He looked uneasy and asked me to wait. A second, he disappeared into a back room and came out with a binder. After flipping through some papers, he looked me straight in the eye and said, "That room was where a man died. Last fall, he was found in the bed, like he'd been asleep. For days, but his heart had stopped. No one knew why. We closed the room after that." I asked about the guy who gave me the key. He just shook his head and said, "I'm the only one who works nights here now." I left without saying another word. Drove 10 hours straight without stopping. I haven't stayed in a roadside motel since, and I never will again. I still think about that cold room, the dragging sound, the laughter, most of all how that key had been waiting for me, like someone wanted me in that room. Sometimes I wonder if I hadn't kept the lights on all night. Would I have ever left? My name is Claire, and this happened to me when I was 24, driving home from my job at a bookstore in rural Pennsylvania. It was early November, the kind of night when the cold sticks to your windshield and fog curls low over the hills. Stayed late to help with inventory, and by the time I got on the road, it was almost midnight. I took the back roads like I always did to avoid the highway 2-lane blacktop lined with woods and farmland. No lights for miles, just the occasional fence post or mailbox catching my headlights. Around a bend and saw a figure standing on the shoulder, a girl, maybe in her late teens, wearing a light-colored hoodie and jeans. Her face was pale and turned slightly away from the road. I slowed down instinctively, thinking she might need help. Maybe her car broke down or something, but there was no car. Just her, standing there with her arms at her sides, still as stone. I rolled down my window a crack and called out, "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. Didn't even flinch. I hesitated, heart thudding, then decided to pull over just ahead of her. I left the engine running, got out, and took a few steps back toward her. "Do you need help?" I asked again. That time she turned toward me, but only slightly, just enough for me to see her face. And something about it felt wrong. Not deformed or bloody, nothing dramatic, just blank, expressionless in a way that didn't seem human. I got a sudden cold feeling in my gut and backed away, saying, "Okay, never mind." Before getting into my car and locking the doors, I drove. Off fast, checking the mirror every few seconds. She was still standing there, not following, not moving, just staring. I shook it off, told myself I'd call the non-emergency line when I got home. Let someone know. Maybe she was in shock or high or something. But 10 minutes later, as I passed through a wooded stretch with no turnoffs, I glanced in the rear view. Mirand, I swear to God, I saw her again, same girl, same pale hoodie, walking on the side of the road behind me. My stomach dropped. I sped up. There was no way she could have gotten ahead of me without a car. I didn't stop, didn't look back again, just kept going until I saw the lights of the next town. I pulled into a gas station, parked under the brightest lights I could find, and just sat there breathing hard. I got out, walked around my car, even checked the back seat empty. I went inside, bought a coffee just to be near people. The clerk asked if I was okay, and I just nodded and said I'd had a long drive. After 20 minutes, I felt calm enough to go home. I figured maybe it had been a trick of the light, a weird reflection, anything but what it looked like. Drove the remaining 15 minutes to my apartment and parked in my usual spot under the street lamp. As I stepped out of the car, I heard something that made my skin crawl. Footsteps. Soft but steady. On the sidewalk behind me. I turned fast. Heart racing, but no one was there. The street was empty. Still, I ran to my door, got inside, and locked everything behind me. That night, I barely slept, jumping at every creak and hum in the building. The next morning, I checked my car again, nothing. No marks, no signs, anyone had been inside. Told a friend about it later that week, and she said maybe it was sleep deprivation or maybe someone had been on something and I just got spooked. That made sense for a while, until it happened again. 2 weeks later, different road, same shift, same cold night, and there she was. Standing under a dead tree, facing the ditch, hoodie soaked from rain. I didn't stop this time. I kept driving, eyes forward. But she's been showing up ever since. It's not often, maybe once every couple of months, but always when I'm alone at night. Somewhere rural, somewhere I don't expect it. I never see her face fully anymore. Sometimes just her reflection in a window, sometimes in the edge of the rearview mirror. Once, I swear I saw her standing in the shadows near my apartment when I came home late.
Oh.
She never chases me, never speaks but. The fear is always there, the feeling that if I ever stop long enough, she'll finally do something. I don't drive at night anymore unless I have to. I keep pepper spray in the car. I've moved apartments, changed jobs. I even tried seeing a therapist who told me it was trauma manifesting in a visual loop. But deep down, I know it's not in my head. Because last week I was riding in the passenger seat while my boyfriend drove through a mountain pass at dusk. I hadn't told him about the girl. I was too afraid he'd think I was crazy. But as we rounded a corner, he suddenly slowed down and said, "That's weird. Did you see that girl just now?" I didn't say anything. I didn't have to, because I knew exactly who he saw.